Let's go. Let's see what happens. Based on we can create a following table to help us with each man. Okay, it's creating it. So unless you've been living under a rock, you probably know of OpenAI's ChatGPT. And in case you don't know what that is, ChatGPT is a conversational AI that's essentially packaged up into an easy-to-use chatbot. And to give you an idea of what ChatGPT can do, I've been browsing a lot of Reddit and the GPT subreddit, and I've seen it do some pretty cool things. Anything from building complex stories out of thin air to using ChatGPT as an actual tool for work, and even some funny things like drawing the ASCII representation of the Mona Lisa, which it didn't do an amazing job, but it's still pretty cool. So I wanted to hop on the wagon and see what ChatGPT can do. So I thought, what if we make it do my computer science assignments? So I got permission from 3 of my instructors from last semester to see if I could use their homework assignments to put them through ChatGPT and see what kind of solutions it gives us back. And I'm also gonna go ahead and take my own solutions from the homework assignments and compare them against ChatGPT to see how good of a job it did. So with that said, let's actually get into it. Okay, so here we have 3 different programming assignments that we'll be giving to ChatGPT to see what it does. We have one in C, which is for operating systems. We have a MongoDB, which is for databases. And then we have Prolog, which is for a different class. Now, I specifically chose Prolog because I feel like Prolog is a little bit more obscure, right? It's not a language that people just know. So I feel like that might give ChatGPT, or I just want to see what it does, right? A little bit more of a challenge than just giving it stuff that it might already know. So we'll see how that goes. So let's go ahead and start with C. So this is again for operating systems. So we have, this is the solution. These 3 files make up the solution. And then we have the actual assignment. Let's look at that assignment. Make that bigger for you guys here. So in this assignment, you'll make use of the POSIX implementation of the Linux shared memory mechanism and use the fork and execute system calls to create child process, probably say a child process, and control the program. So this should come up in the solution that it gives us. And then a child process is to execute. So for this assignment, you will need to write 2 C programs. So we expect 2 C programs, a master.c and a slave.c, which should be compiled into executables, master and slave, respectively. Together, they should do the following. So this is what we want the program to actually do. Let's make this bigger here. So when master executes, it should first output a message to identify itself. It should then request to create a shared memory segment of a certain name, followed by creating n child processes, where both the xxx and the number of n obtained from the command line parameters. Each child process is to execute a slave with each number. So it gives you an example here of 1 through whatever. The master process should output the number of slaves it has created and wait for all of them to terminate. Upon receiving the termination signals from all the processes, the master outputs its content of the shared memory segment filled in by the slaves, removes the shared memory, and then exits. So that's what the master program does. And we also get a header file here, which is a C struct to structure the shared memory segment. So this is what the shared memory segment should look like. Okay. Here we have an example of the execution of the program, which will be executed from the master. This is a number of child processes and then the name for the shared memory segment. And then here we have an example of what the master should produce of the following sequence, basically the output that we should have. And then we go on here to see more information about the child process. So when the child process executes the slave, it should first output the message to identify itself. So similar to the master process there. And it shows a child number and the shared memory segment obtained from the exec system call, right, that invokes its execution. It should then open up the existing shared memory segment, acquire access to it, write its child number into the next available slot in shared memory, close the child memory, and terminate. And it says the slave process should produce the following output sequence. Okay, so we have an example of the output. Okay, so these are going to interleave. So we will have some master output and some followed by some child output and so on. And then finally, it says here that the program should successfully execute on Linux. So it should run on Linux. And then to develop the assignment, we'll do 2 C programs. And basically, it's just telling us what we want here. And then this is something that's interesting. So it says, make sure your source programs are properly formatted as well as adequately and clearly commented. So we want comments on this thing. Now, detailed explanations of all system calls are required and must be in your own words. Simply copying those from the man pages are not acceptable. So this is kind of like, I guess, the more creative part. I want to see what it actually gives us back as far as creativity goes, right? Because it says don't copy from the man pages. So maybe we'll pull up a man page and see basically what the man page says versus what ChatGPT says. So that should be interesting. Okay, so let's do this. I feel like I've talked too much. Let's actually go ahead and take this whole prompt. I'm gonna take the entire prompt from here and then we'll go ahead and copy it. We'll create a new chat. So now let's go ahead and full screen this and give it the entire prompt here. So I'm gonna just go ahead, I just copied and pasted the entire prompt that we just went over right now, and we're gonna go ahead and run this. I wanna see what it does, okay? It's super quick, by the way. To begin, we need to include necessary header files for this assignment. Okay, so it looks like it's jumping straight into the code. Okay, H header, okay, and then it tells you basically what it wants you to include. Next, we want the main function, master.c function, and 2 command line arguments. Okay, so it looks like it's going step by step. It seems it's dissecting the actual prompt and then writing each stuff as we go here based on the description of the program. So right, it's really cool. It checks that we have 3 command line arguments. I don't even know if I did that in my solution. I definitely should have done that. Parse command line arguments. Okay, I put a message to identify the. So it did identify the master process. We have master begins execution. Awesome. It has to do. That's really interesting. So it seems like at this point it's not creating these processes, but it says to do. Okay. Create share. Oh, okay. So it said to do, right? So it said create share memory segment, and now it's actually doing the create share memory segment part. Now, so far, I have not seen any explanations for the actual system calls, which was part of our prompt. If we go back up here, down here it said that detailed explanations of all system calls are required. It must be in your own words. So I see a system call down here for shared memory segment. Shem get, I'm pretty sure, and I've talked, I'm pretty sure those are shared memory segments. I'm sorry, system calls, but we have no explanations of them. So I want to see what happens there. Okay, so far everything looks good to me. I don't see anything that stands out. This should be the way you do stuff. I don't believe for my solution I use any ftalk or shim get instructions, so we'll see what happens there. But I did notice that it stopped. Now I have seen online that there's a limited amount of essentially characters that you can output. So in order to make it proceed, you actually have to tell it to continue. So let me tell it continue. Okay, so there we go. So now in the parent process, use create a loop calls fork. Okay, so it's using fork in the parent process. Makes sense. That's what the assignment told us to do. A for loop to iterate through all of the child processes, I see. And then it forks a process as it goes through the for loop. It has errors, which is very nice. It's catching errors, error creating the process there. PID equals 0. So if it is a child process, essentially, go ahead and come in here and execute the slave process, which is what the name of the actual slave or child was, which is awesome. And it's passing in the number and the shared memory name, which is exactly what it told us to do. So that's amazing. Okay, so process, creating child process. Okay, so now it's waiting for all processes to terminate, right? That's what the master should do. And at the end, it should tell us what the actual content is. So I see wait at, okay, so it's using a referencer for status, okay. Output the content, okay, so this is outputting the content of the shared memory. And it's so awesome that it gives you like detailed explanations of what it's doing. So I guess technically that could be considered the actual explanation of the program itself. I was just expecting to see the explanation inside the code as comments rather than outside, but it does have some stuff there. So output the content shared memory segment, okay. Attaching share memory segment. Attaching share. Okay, that's cool. I haven't seen that, but it looks just catching errors. Okay, very cool, very cool. And then finally, we remove the share memory segment using the CTL function. Okay, I didn't even know that was a call. I think I used a different one when I did my solution here. So remove the share memory segment. Okay, error share. Very cool. I do believe this is all of the master, but we still haven't seen the child yet. So let's go ahead and tell it to continue. Okay, and okay, so it's telling the function exiting detached memory. Okay, this is okay. Oh, okay. I was like, why is it not formatted as code? But it seems like this is an explanation, and then it's actually doing it. Okay, so we have a huge block of code up here. This is weird because I expected this to be outside, not inside. I see that it's doing it inside the code now. But this is, I guess, a comment block, apparently. So I think that should be fine. I just haven't seen that before. Okay. So, okay, this is definitely the child process, if I can see, right? So we get the command line arguments, right? So we get the child number, the name, and a key, which my solution definitely does not have. I do not have the key in my solution. Okay, interesting. Share memory, next we'll open the existing share memory segment. Okay, so it's opening the memory segment. Memory segment to the slave, and we're expecting it to write the number of the slave. So write slave child number. So it's about to do it. So let's go ahead and continue. Okay. Okay, so it's doing this weird thing where it's like hopping between text and then using this markdown or this markup language to essentially show you. See, it's now it's outside of it. That's a little strange to me that it's. I hope this helps. Let me know if you have any questions. Oh, it's amazing. Honestly, it just seems that it's hopping between, like, I expected this to be a code block, but I guess maybe because it's continuing from the previous one up here, which is why it's not a code block. So it should be in here technically. But let me see. So child number, it updates the index, which is great. I have it in child number, detached memory, address space. Okay. Awesome. And then close. Right. Yeah, that makes sense to me. So it wrote the child number, incremented the index, and then, yeah, essentially that's what it does for every single time. Now, here's what's interesting. In this assignment, there is no instruction that tells it to basically take care of any mutual exclusion, because we do have a race condition here. Essentially, when we're trying to access this index, this server index for all of the processes, we should be doing something to stop that, but we're not. But it's cool that the assignment doesn't tell us to do it, so therefore it doesn't do it. And then actually the assignment following this was a follow-up to this where we had to implement that. So I'm curious if I could tell it to go ahead and do that. But as of now, this looks great. Now let's look at what I did, because there are definitely some differences. So starting with master. So if we look up here, I could show you what I did. So if I do it master.c, so this is my solution for the assignment, right? Maybe make this a little bit smaller. So a lot of the stuff that I see it's very similar, right? Starting with the inputs, right? We have our inputs up here, and it's using the, it used the H file to actually use a struct. So it didn't include it in here, but it did use a file, assuming we already had it, right? Because the prompt actually gave it to you. So that's very cool that it caught on to that. I didn't know if it was going to. Right, we have the arguments, and like I said, I don't even think I did any checking for the number of arguments, which I definitely should have, because that means that my program allows any number of arguments to come in, but I just didn't think about doing that for whatever reason. But ChatGPT did catch that, so that's technically better than my solution so far. Very cool. Different syntax for making a pointer object of essentially arrays here. I use a double star, so I mean, not a huge difference there. Right, very cool. Master begins execution as you would expect, right? Very cool. Yeah, no, this looks great. And honestly, this assignment didn't take me that long to do. It took me like maybe like 15, 30-ish minutes, but this definitely was a lot faster than I did it. So it's kind of scary a little bit, right? Because it got done a lot faster than I did. Super cool. Okay, let's move on to the next one. So I want to go ahead and test the next one, which will be the MongoDB database. Now, for this one, I don't know how it's gonna work, right? Because the assignment essentially, here, I'll show you the assignment, right? The assignment asks us to make queries using MongoDB, essentially the Mongo SH, the shell that comes with Mongo to essentially make queries. So it wants us to do that. But here's the thing. It doesn't have access to the data. Now, as far as I know, ChatGPT actually does not have access to the internet. So if I do something like, I don't know, what time is it in New York? Right, if I tell it that, it should not know, because so it has no access to the internet, so therefore it doesn't know what time it is in New York or any other publicly available data, which is also why it's so impressive. Now, that means that I'm going to go ahead and have to give it the data, and some of these sets are actually very large. To give you an example, if I go back here, I have here in the documents, here the transactions ones, I believe this one is very long. So if we do a simple word count on that, you can see that it's over 20, I think, what is that, 20 megabytes or something? It's in bytes or whatever that is, but over 1,746 lines long. Now, I'm not sure if ChatGPT has a limit to the number of data you could give it, so we're about to find that out, and it might struggle with that a bit. But I'm super curious to see what it does. Okay, so this is what we're gonna do. First, I wanna do it without actually giving it any data whatsoever. So if I go back to the assignment, let's go over this assignment because I did not. So I'll show you what this does. So in this homework, you want to write MongoDB queries using the demo analytic database from the document, which is the one I have saved already from this task. So you want to go ahead and turn in queries to answer the following questions. Now, unless otherwise noted, you should not assume any knowledge that is provided in a question. For example, if I ask you to find all accounts owned by the customer Elizabeth Ray, you should not write a query using the list of account IDs that you can see associated with the customer. So essentially, it wants us to instead do a join, right? So instead of basically getting the ID from the actual data, do a join, find the ID of Elizabeth Ray, and then give us appropriate answers. And this is interesting. It says, I strongly encourage you to write these queries using the aggregate instead of find. Even if find will work, aggregate is more flexible and thus more useful. It will serve you well to get comfortable with the syntax. So the wording here is interesting because it says, I strongly encourage you to do this. I wonder if ChatGPT will take that into account. I'm assuming it will, but will it actually use find or aggregate based on the wording? Because it's a suggestion, right? It's not do this, it's suggested. And then we have the queries. So select one account from the object number. So these are the different queries. I won't go over every single one of them, but it gives an idea, right? You're going to get all accounts with this number, customers with this email, transactions greater than 75. Basically, we'll go over all of these once we see what the actual results gives us. But let's see how well it can answer these queries. So this is what I want to do. First, I want to go ahead and do it without giving it any of the data. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to copy the entire thing. We're going to go back into ChatGPT and then paste it. Again, as of now, it has no data, right? So let's go ahead and do that. Whoa, okay, whoa, hold on. I don't have this data. Okay, so it's using find, right? It's using find. It's not using the aggregate function, which we suggested not to, but again, it's a suggestion. It's not, we're not telling it to do that. Let me make this bigger here. We're not telling it to do that at all. Okay, whoa, hold on. Now switch over to aggregate. What's going on here? Select any transactions, okay. So now it's using aggregates and not find. Maybe because it doesn't know how to do with find. But greater than, I didn't give it any data. How, what? Okay, so it's just assuming that it knows what the data is or how it's made. Well, you know what? I guess technically it doesn't have to know what the data is because it knows what the condition. But what if email wasn't email? What if it was like customer email, right? That might be different. I guess it's just assuming what it might be. But again, I guess that all the data it needs is really there. I was not expecting it to just work without the data. Okay, let's keep going. Okay, so it seems like it's done for that point. Number of customers. Okay, let's put this up side by side with what I did because it's telling me what the actual query is, which is nice, so we could reference that and then see the result. Here are my solutions compared to what it did. So let's see what it did. Remember that it said to it suggested to use aggregate instead of find, so I used aggregate, but it used find, obviously. So let's see what it does. So for the first one, we have find number. This is for the number. So select the account number, this number, and you can use the following query. So okay, right? That's not wrong. It is the number itself. But again, in this case, the ID is actually the number. In this case, is account ID, and that's because it has no reference to what the object actually is. So I wonder if I could even give it like a schema maybe, and then it would know what it is, or just give it an example object, one single example object, and see what it did. So we'll do that in a bit. So that's that. And then customer with the email Molina, here that is, and here this is. Very much the same, except I used find and I used aggregate, but the content is there, which is very cool. Greater than 75. Okay, so here we have match greater than 75. Where's mine? Here it is. So I did a transaction count, right? Greater than 75. That's what I did as well. Here it is. Transaction count greater than 75. And then we have a project. And did I do project? I did do project. I did account ID 1. And it used account number. Again, it doesn't know what the fields actually are, but still very impressive. And then transaction count 1. Amazing. Without the data, it doesn't know the data. Okay. Select the name of the birth of all your customers. Project, right? So this is the next query, which is 4. Project name 1, birthday, year. Birthday, that's what I did as well. Awesome, very cool. Now it should be noted, this assignment did not take me that long, but it definitely was not this fast. Like it did it super quickly, right? Okay, so that one looks fine. Let's look at 5. Number of customers born each year, right? You can use the group and sort and count pipelines. Sick. Okay, so we have I projected ChatGPT did name and then year. I did year first. Okay. Did I project name at all? I don't think I did name. This one, what did it say? Count the number of customers that were born each year. So I don't think name was there. So I did. I'm assuming I did it because it's the number of a customer. So it wants to go ahead and have the name of customer. But know that the question did not ask for the name of a customer, right? If I go back, this is query number 5. That's interesting. If I go back to query number 5, this one, number of customers that were born each year. So the previous add new stage group by the field using the account aggregate. Yeah, nowhere there does it say to use the name. So it did it by itself. That was not part of the instruction. But even then, it's technically not wrong to add one more thing. So I did the name and did the birth year, right? That's what I did as well. Birth year, year, date. I did the group by birth year, and then I did a sum of 1. I'm not even familiar with that aggregate, but I'm assuming is doing the sum of the birth years. That one's interesting. Okay. Birth year, number of customers, SOAR. Okay. So it definitely did the group by birth year. For number of customers, it did a count and then it did a sum. That's interesting because count itself, the aggregate count, doesn't require that, but is using count as the name of it, and then is using sum to, I guess, sum up all of the birth years to get the number. That's technically not wrong. That makes sense. I did count instead because once you have the groups for everything, you can just do a count operation on that and it will do it for you. But that's technically, I don't think that's wrong, even though I've never used it that way. That makes sense to me. And then we have a sort of birth year of 1. And in my case, because I grouped it, I used 1, but I think that's fine as well. That is very cool. Very awesome. Okay, let's keep going. I'm assuming these will all be such as like impressive, just as everything else has been so far. What was this one? Count the number of customers that are important, more than 4 accounts, and unimportant, right? So it's using, oh, interesting. Oh, it did. Okay, yeah, I wasn't sure if it was going to use a condition, but it definitely did use condition. So we have condition greater than the size of all accounts. So I should have done something like that as well. Right, condition greater than the size of accounts. Yes, okay. If it's greater than 4, then it's important. Else is unimportant. Very cool. So I did that, and then I did a group of importance here. So I grouped by ID of importance, just like I did, and I did the count again, using the sum instead of count by itself, where I use count. Nothing wrong with that. It's just, it seems like count is the way to go here because it's an actual function that will be used for the groups as far as aggregating goes. But it's all very cool. It did it anyways, which is awesome. Okay, select the customer number. Okay, select the customer object of the customers named Catherine David, along with all of their accounts and projected results. Okay, very cool. So it doesn't have access to the data, but it still did do the lookup. So it did a name of Catherine David. So it did a match for Catherine David, just like I should have done. Here it is, name match Catherine David, and then a lookup for accounts and the field using accounts and the foreign field. It did not finish it. So I'm gonna do a continue. Okay, so it's going. Okay. Right. So it's doing the rest of it. What is this one? Because this should be the last one, right? To count the number of customers that were born each year. Okay, so I think, I'm not sure what this one is because I believe we're already at the last query here, unless I missed one myself. But it's going... The size of accounts, right? Okay, so we're back at this one. So I think it's just repeating what it did already. Okay, here we go. Before, it did not give us the entire part of the lookup. Okay, so now let me know. Okay, cool. So I don't know what happened there, but if you notice the first time, it kind of cut short and it did not finish it. Whereas I did it to do it again, and it looks like I did it again. And now we have the entire thing. Okay, so let's keep going here. So we have accounts, so it's matching from accounts. Lookup, account ID, from accounts. Local field is also accounts. Again, it's another data, but it's a good guess and it definitely works. And the foreign field ID. So in my case, it's account ID because it's not called ID. But again, it doesn't have access to the data, so very cool still. And then as accounts, right, I give it a name. I call it Catherine's accounts, same thing. Name 1 and accounts 1. So, right, same thing. Very, Applause. It did a very good job. That's amazing. Okay, that's very cool. So it's very cool because again, I was expecting to give it the data and it did it without the data and it still gave me like very good answers. I don't know if I want to even give the data at this point because one of those files are, like I said, it's huge. So I don't know if it will give it to me, but let's try it. Let's just for the purposes of, I guess, completeness here. So here are all the accounts. Let me just do a control and copy that. So let me say, I'm gonna tell it to use this for the accounts. I don't think, okay, it took a while. Again, it's large, right? So that's why it stalled a bit. So I'm gonna go ahead and give that to it. Okay. It's a lot of data. Okay, too long, reload the conversation in some minutes. Okay, I was expecting it. I was expecting it to be too long. But even without the data, it gave us a very good results. These are pretty much the same as what I did. I am very impressed right now. Now, let's give it one more challenge. This one is interesting. I actually enjoyed doing this assignment myself. It was very fun to do. So this is a Prolog assignment. If you're not familiar with Prolog, that's expected because not a lot of people actually use Prolog. But it's a programming language that's based on predicate logic or first order predicate logic. But we'll see what it does. So we're going to look at the solution first. So we'll do, this is the assignment itself. Now, this one, I did not get full permission to use a homework assignment, but the professor was nice enough to get me something that was very similar with a solution. So we'll be using that solution to compare it to it. So this is the puzzle. So 4 colleagues recently got into a discussion about some of the flamboyant patterns showing up on neckties these days. As a joke, each man arrived at work the next day sporting the most ridiculous tie he could find. And it says no 2 men wore the ties with the same pattern. One tie was decorated with smiling cupids, okay? And then none of the men had to venture outside of his own closet as each had received at least one such tie from a different relative. So from the following clues, can you match each man with the pattern of the flamboyant tie as well as determine the relative who presented each man with his tie? So then we have here different rules. So the first one says the tie with the grinning leprechauns wasn't a present from his daughter, so it can't be from his daughter, and then so on and so forth. We have a bunch of different rules, right, and so on, and that's that. Now, eventually at the end we should get a result basically seeing which man has which tie like it says here and determine which relative given the present. I do have the solution like I said, that's here, this is the Prolog solution. So to start off, let's look at the actual solution of what it should be. So if I do load this up real quick, here we go, and I believe it's under solve. Cool. So here we have, so we have Crow got the cupids from his daughter, Evans from leprechauns from his uncle, Hurley got the reindeer tie from his sister, and Mr. Spiegler got the happy faces tie from his daughter-in-law. So that's what we should get. So this is what I want to do. Before I tell it to do the assignment in Prolog, I want to go ahead and tell it to just solve the riddle and see if it could do that for us. So let's do that. I'm going to go ahead and get the assignment again. What was it called? It was called Prolog. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy basically this stuff without that, and I'm not, you know what? I'm not even gonna tell it to solve it. Well, I guess here it does. So I was thinking of just putting it in, but it does. So it says, can you determine? So we'll see if it thinks, okay, can you determine? Does that mean solve it? I'm assuming that's what I would think. So let's see what it does. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy that and paste it into there, and let's go. Let's see what happens. Based on like we can create a following table to help us with each man. Okay, it's creating it. I don't know, you could create tables in markup language out of here. Okay, so that's very cool. Okay, so it's going through every, okay. And what's interesting is that the original problem that I was given actually did have a table so you can solve it. So I guess it's thinking the same way and using that to solve it. Okay, and it goes through this. I want to read this explanation. So based on the given information, create a table. Okay, so it fills in starting what it knows, I guess, starting with that. Mr. Crow, reindeer, happy faces, Evans, grinning leprechauns, father-in-law, sister. Okay. Okay, and thus we have 4. From clues A and E, we know that Mr. Evans and Mr. Springer own a tie with the grinning leprechauns. So we also know from clue F that Mr. Hurley received his tie from his sister, right? So clue C, we know that Mr. So it's going through all of the clues essentially. It's okay, so that's fine. Here are all the clues that basically we just went over right now. And then, so the final matching is as follows. Okay, so crow, dancing reindeer, but it has no relative, okay? Evans, leprechauns, it has a match, but nothing else. Is this pretty much the same as was before? Okay, Mr. Hurley, sister. Okay, so it seems like we don't know what Hurley got. And yellow happy face. So what was the solution again? Let's see. So we came up, or the solution was that Mr. Crow got the Cupid side from his daughter. Okay, but this is dancing reindeer. That's not right. Is the solution wrong, or is the solution I was given wrong? So is GPT wrong, or is this wrong? So Evans got the leprechauns from his father-in-law. Okay, so I'm pretty sure we stumped it, because that's not, I mean, it's missing pieces for one. And I remember actually going through the logic of solving this before myself, and I believe I came up with the same conclusion. So I do think, I mean, for one, it's missing pieces, so it's wrong. Did we give all of the data? We might have actually stumped it. So let me go back to the assignment real quick, which is right here. So I have all the way up to point F. Yep, everything's there. And then we're telling it from the beginning for college. Yeah, it's everything there. So let's see if we can correct it. Let's tell it that's incorrect. Try again. Okay, apologize for the errors. Here is revised solution that makes account for the updated information. Okay, let's see. Okay, so it apologized, which is very nice of it. So we'll see what it gives us. Okay, it's going back again. And we knew it was wrong just because all the data is not there. It's missing pieces, right? So there's no way that could be all of it. It's definitely missing something. Okay, so final matching, Cupid's father-in-law. It's missing information still. Smiling faces. And that's definitely wrong, because the prompt says that each man has their own tie, right? Over here, something. It says no two men wore ties with the same pattern, but it's giving me smiling faces twice. So that is wrong again. Okay. Let's try it again. That let's do. It's still. Let's see. Let's give it some hints. Let's see. The solution is missing. Let's do either relatives or tie patterns. Let's do try again. Let's tell it it's wrong. So this is incorrect. Try again. So let's see if it does. Okay, so previous answer, revised solution. Okay. Huh. So it looks to me like it's going, even the initial thoughts are changing. So Mr. Crow's features neither the dancing reindeer nor yellow happy faces. But it says Mr. Crow. Okay, it gave an or statement. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, let's see. It seems like even the starting, again, it's missing things. So this can't be it because it's missing things. Okay, I think we might need to help it a bit, which I get at this point. I think we stumped it. I don't think it's gonna figure it out. So Mr. Crow got the Cupid side from his daughter, right? So let's tell it. Let's give it a hint. Here is a. Let's see. The solution is incorrect. Here is a hint. Okay. Okay, so it's trying again. I told you the hint was Mr. Crow got the Cupids from his daughter, but it's starting off saying that it's either reindeer or Cupids. Okay, we'll see what happens. Okay. And I believe this is the initial solution, right? So if we go back, hold on. I don't remember what the initial one was. So initially it thought Mr. Crow got the reindeer, which was wrong because we know the solution is the Cupids, right? That is the solution. And I'm confident that's right. So I don't think that the solution itself is a problem. So reindeer, right, happy faces, Cupids, which makes sense, but it's the wrong relative here because the relative should be daughter. So we're looking Cupids. Let's go down to the newest one. And I think it did take the hint because then we have Cupids and daughter, but everything else is still blank. So Evans, according to this, got the grinning leprechauns. Yes. Mr. Hurley got Cupids, which is wrong because no two men can have the same tie. I wonder if it's not catching on to that because this is the second time that happens. Let me see. This is wrong. Recall that no two men can have the same tie pattern. Okay. So let's see if we. I don't think it's gonna get it at this point. I think we've given it too many tries, but it's very cool that it's trying to solve it. Right? I even think that's a win. It's going through the process of trying to solve the puzzle here. And I will say, to solve it myself when I went through this, it took me like 15 minutes. So I don't think this will be able to solve it in 15 minutes based on what it gave me. So I think I actually beat ChatGPT on one thing here. So let's see. The final match, again, this is wrong. Yeah, it's not matching it. Even if my solution was wrong, like if this solution was wrong, I know that it's possible to get the solution from the given data, and it's missing pieces. It's either missing a tie or a relative, so I know it's not able to get it. So that's that. It's honestly a little disappointing because I wanted it to solve every single thing, but it's not able to solve the logic puzzle. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. It was cool to see what ChatGPT can do. It's cool to see that it's probably not at a point where it might take over every single job yet, but it's definitely getting there, and I'm excited to see what will come of it in the future. Peace.